Hello and welcome to another Driven Catalyst live stream. It is Friday, New Music Friday, and today we are going to talk about and review the I before E rule. Because I don't know what it is about Big Thief and the word thief in general, but all of my formal literary training goes out the window. I don't know if I just type too quick or what, but I always want to slip up and spell thief, E-I-F. Thief? I don't know. But we are talking about the Big Thief album today. As promised on Wednesday, I said I didn't know what new release we would be talking about today, but I had a sneaking suspicion that there was a pretty big one that I had been looking forward to that I was forgetting. And imagine my surprise when I logged on to Album of the Year or Album of the Day, whatever it's called, my favorite website for Friday mornings, and I realized that Double Infinity from Big Thief released today. Background, I have been listening to Los Angeles from Big Thief since it came out as a lead single, or as a single. I'm not totally sure on the, like, when something is referred to as the lead single, or like, are there multiple lead singles? Also, we're kind of out of the radio play space for the most part, so does it even matter? These are some of the philosophical musings that we come to at 2:10 on a Friday afternoon. Okay, so our lead singles, or the singles that came out ahead of the album, are Incomprehensible, All Night, All Day. I always want to say All Day, All Night because of... Let me see if I can get that song to come up on my Spotify likes really quick. It's a song that's a similar... No. Sorry, also, I'm not totally sure if that just played over... But there's a song that starts with, like, shouting all day, all night. So I keep wanting to say all day, all night. It's called All Night, All Day, at least on Double Infinity. So All Night, All Day and Grandmother and Los Angeles were singles. It looks like Grandmother and Los Angeles released at the same time. Hard to make sense of sometimes how things are structured on the little Spotify discography singles release window. But those are the 4 songs that came out prior to the album. And I very, very quickly was just hooked on Los Angeles. I think if you know Big Thief, if you know and love Big Thief, as most people do, you know them for their lyricism, but I don't think I had clocked that's what is so beautiful and lovely to me, at least, about Big Thief. I'm a big fan of their album Masterpiece from 2016, Real Love, and Paul. Paul is very, very well known, I feel. I guess Real Love and Paul, and then the titular song Masterpiece are my favorites from the album. And hold on. Okay, and then Capacity, their 2017 album Mythological Beauty, is the standout for me. But sonically in general, Big Thief just has really vibey, cool music. I feel like it's very easy to just accept that you like the music that you're listening to without listening and thinking too much about how well-rounded and clever and how much of a gut punch the lyrics can be too. And I feel like that is kind of the journey I went on with this album. I very quickly fell in love with Los Angeles because I really like a lot of the sentiment behind the lyrics. And that is kind of what put Double Infinity on my radar. It's why I was so excited to listen to the album, because looking at the other list of singles, I mean, 4 singles prior to the album feels like a lot to me. It's pretty normal. I'm not saying a lot in a greater music industry commentary context. I just mean getting 4 songs of a 9-track album prior to release date is pretty significant. And I had only really noticed or like committed to listening to Los Angeles kind of in perpetuity. But after listening to the album all the way through, it's without a doubt like up there for me for the year. It's a very well-rounded, beautiful album. I read the Pitchfork album that I linked down below in the notes section of the YouTube live stream, because I haven't really said much from it yet, and I don't know how much I'll talk about it, but anytime I kind of go and do my homework and gather context about an album or about an artist, I like for you all to be able to see and refer back to like kind of the sources that I'm citing, even though I may not cite them too much. It was an interesting read. I really thought it was like a well-written interview, and there were some questions that the interviewer asked that I was like, whoa, we're like diving in. We're gonna keep asking. And then there were a lot of answers that Adrian Linker gave that I don't know. I've never watched or read an Adrian Linker interview, and I don't know, I was very charmed by some of her answers, so that was fun. Adrian Linker, let's dive in real quick. Jonathan, Indiana, Vampire Empire, the independent release of Vampire Empire, because there is a Big Thief Vampire Empire as well. I really love the Adrian Linker one. I love them both, but I favor the Adrian Linker version. And then New York City from the B-Sides album, I've been listening to since high school. So those are my credentials / I don't know. I do feel like Adrian Linker and Big Thief in general sneak up on me habitually. And I remember how wonderfully vibed the music is. And like I said, to repeat myself, lyrically, this is such a strong album. Let's like talk about the album art first, though, because while I was doing my homework, I did stumble down a Reddit thread of fans kind of giving their thoughts on the album cover. And now that I've listened to the album, there is a lyric from one of the tracks. I believe it's Words, but I'm going to pull it up and we are going to talk about it. And I want to be absolutely correct about which one it is. It's either Words or it very much could be. It's not Words. Is it No Fear? Yes. Okay. No Fear. Okay. There is a line, there is no time, round like a lime, destiny, which I find that and will almost promise you such. I'm going to quote lyrics from this album throughout the live stream, and they are going to sound weird coming out of my mouth. The rhythm of them and their delivery and the context that they are built into or woven into, almost feels better to say, is like all of the lyrics suit each other very well. Like we are very much in a space, which is something that is referenced in the article I linked down below. One of the key questions, or I don't know key questions, but a question asked that stood out to me about the album in general was in reference to the recording experience. And in the article, the band talks about kind of riding their bikes through the snow to a studio in New York and how different that locale was for recording this album as opposed to other albums. And kind of talking about generally a studio experience is more of you're cooped up in the studio and you sort of escape to the outdoors in between sessions and take breaks, and sort of in this harsh New York City bustling and cold setting. Although I will say, I say bustling, but while reading descriptions of it, it seems very remote. Just imagining like a snow-covered city and then escaping into a little warm nest to make the album was what I kept imagining. But yeah, that kind of backdrop for the album I thought was very interesting. That being said, let's talk about the elephant in the room a little bit. The elephant in the room. That kind of setting and ambiance that I just described feels very, very different from a harshly lit neon green lime with many, many pores visible, wrapped in the peel of a lime, sort of in a double infinity around the lime. It's cool. It suits the album name. It suits that lyric I just read out to you about time like a lime, which is sort of funny to me. I kind of received it as a play on when life gives you lemons. Time like a lime is kind of like life giving you lemons. To me, at least. I don't know. But I was reading through a Reddit thread that was sort of underscoring how different this album art is to other Big Thief album artwork. And it does stand out. It is very funny that on Spotify, where it sort of canvases the back and gives you just like a random hex color that suits whatever the album is, we're dealing with like Brat Summer Green, which is so different from the album we're talking about. I don't know. I have no notes on this album. Can you tell? I really just kind of sat in it and listened to it all the way through. So I'm going to have to be pulling up resources throughout while I talk about it, but I will go track by track. Incomprehensible pretty quickly like brought me into the universe that we are inhabiting. I would say across the album, we deal with sort of the similar... I feel like I'm going to use words that are like connotatively negative. I don't mean them that way. I guess I'm kind of just trying to like fumble through my descriptions of this so we can get through it pretty quick. But I feel like sonically we are always in sort of, there's buzz, there's ambiance. It's layered. It's big. It's expansive. Whereas I feel like a lot of this album plays on that usual like nostalgic buzz that we have with Big Thief, but I feel like we're also adding sort of ethereal like pangs and some chiming, like there's like wind chimes on some. There's Los Angeles sounds almost like a live recording because there's like audience laughter, or that's how it played to me as I was listening to the song, or have been listening to the song. And so we're doing some of that stuff. I will acknowledge, though, I'm nowhere near as familiar with the Big Thief discography as I should be to really be talking through and describing like their commonalities. Or how they normally sound, and trying to put a name on it or decode anything. That's my disclaimer. But yes, very, very quickly with Incomprehensible, we get into this world. The imagery is really beautiful. I've got the lyrics up, so I'll work through it. This story that is being woven, traveling with some stuff I left when I was a kid, Mr. Bear and the wooden box I hid. That is a direct story, lived experience that is referenced in the article linked below. That kind of gets into the album's exploration of leaving things behind, growing. I have some quotes that really stood out to me. I guess I did take notes. I liked a lot. I feel, okay, so the question was asked, kind of what is something that like can break up a band, or yes, what's something a band can't survive? And the answer was, what a band can't survive is an individual refusing to look at something in themselves that the rest of the group sees. And that, obviously, this is in the context of a band, but that sentiment being kind of a universal truth that is seen and accepted in like love and family, in time, and the effect that it has on relationships and families and like romantic love on bands, whatever. That is absolutely something that is explored thematically throughout the album. Yes, here we go. And then another quote, I feel like it's taught me about being open to change, being open to other people asking you to change in order to make the relationship work. That sentiment, I would say, is pretty prevalent across the album. And something that is addressed in the album, or in the article, that I was not aware of, because I had not gotten into the parasocial lore by any means, or really even a knowledge of who makes up the members of Big Thief beyond just knowing Adrian Linker independently, is that within Big Thief, Buck Meek and Big Thief were married and have since divorced, and the band is still a band. And so the article very interestingly discusses a lot of that, and kind of just the discussion of like kind of love and rebuilding and acknowledging change and growth throughout life, I would say is very central to everything going on the album. Very keenly named Double Infinity. Okay, track 2 is Words. I'm going to skim it real quick, see if I can, if anything stood out to me. Okay. From a precursory scan, we have pretty standard songs. By standard, I by no means mean anything other than remarkable. They are very remarkable. When I say non-standard, I mean as we get into track 6, No Fear. Yes, this is when we start working with a very structural approach to lyricism. Very repetitive, very, cyclical in nature. And we explore that again on Happy With You. Happy With You is comprised of 1, 2, 3, 4, kind of 4 independent thoughts in conversation with each other, repeated for 4 minutes and 26 seconds. And music that accompanies that journey in such an interesting way. This is definitely an album that it's required, in my opinion, to at least listen to it all the way through once, the way an album is intended to be listened to. There's just enough interesting things going on it sonically and structurally that I just do think you have to consume it as a piece of art all the way through. Which isn't to say that you can't just shuffle it and enjoy the heck out of it too. But yes, No Fear and Happy With You, I would say, are the standouts structurally speaking. Los Angeles was the single that blew me away right out of the gate. Incomprehensible and Words both have moments lyrically that are so strong. I made a note of them. They were memorable to me. Double Infinity and How Could I Have Known? That's track 5. And then the album closer, track 9, is How Could I Have Known? Immediately were standouts to me in like a profundity way. I was taken aback by some of the lyrical musings, and I felt like, okay, I'm saving these, I'm pocketing them, not just because of their lyrical merit and sonically what's going on, but it does feel like you go on this journey, you listen to them, and you start turning over the sentiments in your mind, and they make their impact. And I would say like that is a very good way to talk about this album, is I feel like it is, it makes an impact. It feels impactful in terms of kind of reconciling big life events and big life feelings and making sense of them and moving forward. And that is a lot of what is discussed in, once again, shout out, the interview that I linked down below. So I highly recommend reading that as well, listening to the album. I think that is a good summary. That's a good place to wrap up my thoughts on the new Big Thief album. Once again, that is I before E, Big Thief. Noting that only for myself, really. And I am embarrassed to admit that I struggle with that at all. No other word do I struggle with that. I know the I before E rule. I'm a pretty, I don't want to brag, but I'm pretty good at spelling. I don't know. For whatever reason. And it's only in the context of Big Thief. I think once it becomes a proper noun, I start to become overly conscious of, well, they could be remixing it. They're not remixing the spelling of the word thief. Okay. Now let me talk about my favorite singles that have released this week. I'm not going to probably say too much about them, but they were on my release radar. There are artists that I listen to pretty habitually, check in on, and did enjoy. I will say, I listened to, this isn't just me compiling new songs. I listened to some new songs and I didn't add them to my list. They were good. They were fine. But I'm only bringing to you the best of the best in my heart. Okay. So new single, The Scythe from Last Dinner Party came out. The aesthetic of the album cover, either for the single or the upcoming album, I didn't do enough digging on that. The album cover is really cool. I'm hoping that it's the full album cover, although we could go either way. Sometimes, though, artists put out singles and the album artwork on the single is so cool, and then it's not the main album art. I'm kind of low-key, this is a little bit a reference very, very specifically to Grace VanderWaal's single album artwork for What's Left of Me, I think is the track, where she's like donning Joan of Arc garb. I love the album art for that single. Not to say the Child Star album artwork is phenomenal. I really like it aesthetically too. I just think the What's Left of Me single album artwork is so cool and it fits the world. There's something so dramatic, and I'm so obsessed with just any media reference to Joan of Arc. I just do. I will always be biased to that. So similar vein, The Last Dinner Party, The Scythe single album artwork is really good. Next is Florence Road. Florence Road, I listened to every single that is out for their upcoming album a bit ago, but I think I didn't realize that it was singles leading to an album and not an EP in its entirety. And I'm not totally confident that it was, because it does seem like there's an upcoming album, but I couldn't tell you. But I do remember listening to it, and I remember liking everything I listened to from Florence Road. So the new single, Break the Girl, phenomenal. I really liked it, immediately saved. It's going to be on shuffle. I plan on listening to it later. Frankly, I want to be listening to it now. It's a really good single. Next, Allison Pontier, Texas, our Texas girl. She released Handsome. I don't want to brag, but I did hear Handsome live around this time last year when I saw her for the first time live. And I am seeing her again live this weekend. I'm so stoked. She is so talented and lovely. I got to meet her after the concert. She stayed by the merch table and received everyone. And I got to chat with her a bit. Went to college up a little bit near where she is from, her hometown. And yeah, I just adore everything she's doing with her platform. I think she is such a beyond talented artist. There's a song with Lord Huron, I Lied. Lord Huron and Alison Pontier, cannot recommend that enough. That's probably a good toe dip song if you are coming from sort of the just greater music area and wanting to introduce yourself to Alison Pontier. That's a great place to start. And then she has an EP, Crash Test Dummy. Is that right? Quite embarrassed. That's like one of my favorite EPs of last year. But I can't remember if Crash Test Dummy is the titular track. It's not. Breaking the Fourth Wall is the name of the EP. That's another really good place to start with Allison. But the new single that came out this week came out today, is called Handsome from Alison Pontier. Okay, earlier this week, I already talked about this a little bit on Wednesday, but Brandi Carlile announced a new album and put out the lead single Returning to Myself, and it has been on play quite a bit, for me at least. I am so obsessed with it. I adore Brandi Carlile. I could not be more excited for an album. I love the aesthetic of it. As a font nerd, and I do think I said this already on Wednesday, the idea that we are committing to a visual era of Brandi Carlile right now that is being driven by such a beautiful, strong serif font, all caps serif font, clean, beautiful, all caps serif font. I'm addicted to it already. I'm so excited. And I couldn't be more excited for an album that's Returning to Myself, Brandi Carlile. Okay, next up, I don't know that I've talked about Eller on live stream yet. Ellur is the name of the artist. But I had a friend put me on to Eller a little bit ago. And God Help Me Now is the name of the song from Eller. I'm so afraid I'm saying it wrong and stupid. Stupid on my part saying it wrong. If Eller is right, it's beautiful. I'm just fearful that it's so wrong. I'm wrong in a crazy way is what I mean. But yeah, Your Dog and God Help Me Now from Eller are just blew me away. New single The Wheel out from Eller, released earlier this week, is absolutely in, pun intended, that wheelhouse. It's a great song, and it is absolutely up to par with everything I have listened to from her previously. So really stoked about that, and y'all should keep an eye on Eller. I'm really addicted, really into that music. And then Annika Bennett, we've got a single out from Annika Bennett called A Cure, and like there's moments where I hate comparing artists to other artists because I feel like they probably hate it and get tired, and each artist is so much their own thing, that, I don't know, the acknowledgement that they may bear similarities to another feels like it waters that down. But I think in terms of building community around art, it can be really helpful to like recommend things in a way where comparison is helpful. There are moments where Annika Bennett on this single vocally sounds like Phoebe Bridgers, which is, I think, a huge, exciting deal. I adore the vocals of Phoebe Bridgers. So, and I know many people do. So that's why I bring it up, because I know, like, this is your daily prescription of Annika Bennett. And she's got A Cure. That's the new single. Cannot recommend it enough. Let's wrap that up. We have reached the part of the live stream where I'm bumbling over my words and just giddy about how great all this new music is, but we're at the part of the day where I gotta just turn you all over to listen to it yourself. So go and be merry. Listen to the new album Double Infinity by Big Thief, in addition to all of the great new release singles that I just shouted out. Have a great, safe weekend, and I will see y'all next Monday. Goodbye.